Hello, good evening, and welcome to this impromptu episode of the Grand Torino. As we wait for the room to fill in, I know this is an unscheduled broadcast, but please bear with. I will bring in today's guest for today's disquisition shortly. But please, before I do, as I always encourage you, don't forget, please press the like button, press the subscription, and the bell, and you'll be reminded of future broadcasts here on the Grand Torino. Couple of things to touch in with you on today's hurried broadcast. I only just got in the door and was able to make this arrangement with my good friend from France, Thierry, which I will bring in presently. But just to touch on you and touch in with you on last night's events in Balbriggan at the public meeting organised by ACI, Anti-Corruption Ireland, where John Waters and Gemma O'Doherty spoke, and Justin Barrett, leader of the National Party, was due also to speak. But due to the warm welcomes that we received from the opposition, Justin was unable to attend last night's meeting to get past the protests. But that all aside, apart from the criminal damage that Justin did incur on his car, I do hope that's resolved quickly and as quickly as possible, as we are joined by EC. Liam J is in the house, Kenneth Geary, Donald Casey, Maria Fitzpatrick, welcome one and all. Derek Bly and the inevitable Pa is in the house as the room fills up. Thank you, Patriots, so very much for joining me. Just wanted to say I mentioned a few things on a previous test broadcast before they slipped my mind. I want to give a big shout out to my wingmen. I wanted to have an acronym name for you, but I was delighted and proud that you covered my six, and you did a very spectacular job on maintaining a very solid and determined presence with me last night. I want to thank my men for turning out there with me. I was also asked to get my Irish diction up to date, which I will do, and I'll promise you for the next broadcast I will. But just to say and round off on last night's discussion that the meeting went ahead. It was very well spoken. I do hope you enjoyed John's speech. Again, apologies for the sound, but I'm streaming from my phone. We are on 3G. We are at the behest of the behemoth of what is supposedly known as Irish internet. And we do the best that we can on limited amount of funds. With that in mind, please, if you're of a mind or if you're encouraged, please don't forget to go over and visit the Grand Torino website, World Wide Web, grandtorino.ie. Throw us a couple of quid in the tank. Please try and keep this platform going. We are doing the very best that we can to bring you common sense, the truth, and varied speakers from around the world. Okay, with that said, and I hope I did make that point very eloquently about my backup team, wingmen, us, appreciate that. Thank you for turning up and helping me out last night. Also to the couple of gentlemen that I did manage to speak with too, as we were waiting for the gates to open, and I ended up shaking their hands, and it was a respectful conversation in the fraught manner that we were trying to have that little bit of discussion. But I respect them for being engaging enough to understand that we couldn't have a full and proper discussion there and then, but did shake hand and left on friendly terms. To the few arseholes that did turn up, wanted to front up and make an excuse, we're not going to put up with it anymore. And for Phony Maloney with his little, oh, look at GT, was so scared. I was waiting there for the gates to open. I was willing to discuss with all my friends and listening along to the jaunty chants of the songs that were being sung out for me so heartily. I encourage you all. Well done. Now, that aside, as the room fills up, 81, don't forget to smash the like button if you would brighten my Northern Star. Today's guest is a friend of mine, a friend from France, and I want to bring him in now, actually, before we give you today's topics, but let me bring in my friend Thierry for today's discussion. His name is Thierry. Thierry, how are you, sir? How are you keeping?
I'm fine. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, GT, for welcoming me in your show. It is both a pleasure and an honor. I hope I can be of use for the topics you want to discuss tonight, and I also hope that my accent is not too thick for your audience, so that they can understand me perfectly. Oh, I lost your. I can't hear you anymore. Yeah.
Simply Lovely, simply lovely. I don't remember touching the mute button there. No, your accent is fine. You're coming through 5 by 5, as we like to say, eh, in the online scene. So down to business, Thierry. Let me first by popping up. John Waters spoke about him. He's recently come to my attention via the daughter of Albion, and um, she brought forward to me the attention of Renaud Camus. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, Renaud Camus is fine.
Fantastic. Um, we want to discuss his philosophy, his teachings, his present day persecution for philosophizing or for bringing up the hypothesis of what is termed online and socially as the great replacement, or as he says, the replacement. You can find his works, his philosophies from France, and his latest one, the great replacement, I believe it's called, has been translated into English translation. As we go through his philosophies and rounding up and giving us a pointer of which direction to head, can you just finish off at the end of our discussion with just an update of the Yellow Vest movement, the ongoing protests, as you see it from your perspective on the ground? I know you're involved in the European institutions from your end of the game, so you've got a great vantage point. But for reasons, as we all know, your identity is to remain secret, and of course, you're using a pseudonym for tonight's show. So please, a brief introduction of yourself, Thierry, as much as you can, and your perspective on the Camus philosophies, please.
Sure. So I am in my 30s, and I am indeed working in the European institutions. But please do not think that I am a globalist or a pro EU public worker in any way. Of course, I am within the institution. I am working politically to help the EU getting maybe on a better track, and if it cannot, getting to an end, because the EU is one of the biggest opponent of European civilization and its people. Right now, we need to get out of it in a way or another. So coming to Renaud Camus, to present him a bit, is not a philosopher, but a writer. He published dozens of books. He is actually quite a fine writer. He has a lovely style. His works are well known for the purity of his language, and he happened to have published in 2011 a book called The Great Replacement. So The Great Replacement is not so much a theory than a statement. It is an observation of what is happening in the West. The Great Replacement is a demographic replacement, what Renaud Camus calls a genocide by substitution. And by that, it means that you have a native people and you simply replace it with another people. So the great replacement is the process of the destruction of the Europeans from Europe by replacing them with another people. Together with this is also what Renaud Camus calls the small replacement, which is coming together with the great one. The small replacement is the destruction of everything Europeans bring to the world, which are particular art, a particular gastronomy, a specific view of men-women relations, politeness, love for nature and beauty, a way of life, the European way of life. And according to Renaud Camus, what is the goal of this great replacement? The goal globally is to create a global favela without any clear identity, without any clear distinction between people, filled with actually interchangeable people, with what he calls undifferentiated human matter. And this undifferentiated human matter shall be continuously amused by the entertainment industry. So this is, broadly speaking, his description of the process that is happening right now everywhere in the West, even though he's much more concerned about Europe because he feels that Europe is the fatherland of Europeans. Of course, it's not that he doesn't care for Americans or for South Africans, for instance, but it is true that Europe, it is our homeland, and if we lose it, we lose what makes us European in a way. So yeah, this is broadly the main points of his great replacement theory, as you said it, but it's actually just witnessing something that is ongoing.
Yeah, fantastic. I just popped up on the channel there just to remind our viewers, the Daughter of Albion's channel. She is categorizing it or cataloging his current predicament, and he outlines the persecution of the Catholic Church as well. And again, what was thought to be, shall we say, in the realm of conspiracy. And don't forget, everybody, people conspire every day. Builders conspire to build you a house, you know. So we must not be averted by this word or put off by this word.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what you say is true. To Renaud Camus, and I don't think he's wrong on this. It's not so much conspiration than just the view of the elites, the globalists, who believe that you can replace any individual by any other. You know, they are just so out of touch with reality, with actual real, in a way, people, that they feel you can just take 10 Africans, get them into Europe, and that will make 10 citizens, 10 Europeans, because what they see is not actually either Europeans or Arabs or Asians. They only see consumers. So
Exactly.
it is not so much will to destroy Europe than just a basic in the head calculus saying our demography is in decline, so we have to get more people. And that will be just exactly the same. It will not. And this is what Renaud Camus is describing with his small replacement, which comes together with the great replacement. If you replace a people by another, you will lose what makes these people so unique, so specific.
Yeah, I'm reminded of another YouTuber that Morgoth's Reviews, who we have conversations with from time to time, and he made the analogy of the Viking ship. I can't remember the specific name of the ship, but the ship is held in. It's a Viking ship that's held in it's held in storage and it's on display. But every couple of decades or every couple of decades, a part of the original part of the ship would rot and would be replaced with something similar. And over a process of time, the ship is eventually replaced by completely new materials. It's akin to what we would know here as Trigger's brush. Trigger was one of the characters in Only Fools and Horses, and he had his brush. He was a workman who swept the roads. He said, "I've had this brush for 13 years. It served me well. Only 12 handles and 9 broom heads." But it's not essentially the same brush to begin with. And that is equivalent to what's happening and what is slowly unfolding, if we allow ourselves to imagine that process, is bit by bit a new voter bloc is being brought into the European diaspora, a new working replacement, as you say, more tax drones in situ. And we are placated by this approachment that these are the people are needed, our new doctors and engineers, to replace our declining fertility rates. And these people will help to manage our pension funds. And these people will help to look into us into our old age, as we are told consistently that our demographics are reducing and our infertility rates are dropping. This, as we can see, can be completely reversed, as Viktor Orban has done, clearly shown in his administration, to incentivize the indigenous population to have children. And up to 4 children, you will pay no tax. There's a rake of strategies that can be implemented by a nationalistic government that wants to protect the sanctity of the nation state. Would you agree, Thierry?
Yeah, of course, I fully agree with you. The ship you were referring to is not Viking; it's actually Greek. It was Plutarch, the Roman, who talked about the ship of Theseus. You know, and as long as Theseus undergoes his journey, he has to replace his piece by piece. And then, is it exactly the same ship or is it not? But the thing is, of course, that people, nations, cultures, civilization, they are living matter, and it's not just a piece of wood or some sails that you can replace. It's actually carrying a particular way of life, a particular relation with the environment, with the daily life, and of course, if you replace the people, you replace everything that goes together with it. And what makes Camus so interesting in these days is that he perfectly describe what is happening. And for this, because he kept on talking about what is happening, about the great replacement that is ongoing, he was actually trialed. There was a complaint against him, and he was trialed and
right.
sentenced for saying the truth, for saying what he sees with his bare eyes, what he sees that is happening. So, for instance, he has been sentenced to 2 months suspended sentence, 2 months of jail, and to about 4,000 euros to pay to anti-racist associations. And what has he been sentenced for? Because he pronounced a speech, a political speech, even though he was an artist. Right now, is engaged in politics because he doesn't want the great replacement to be carried out to its end, of course. So, in his speech, he said things like, "Immigration became an invasion." He said, "If there is no other way than war or submission, then war 100 times. We are non-violent, but not pacifists." He said that replacist people who want the great replacements to happen, people like Macron, like Trudeau, like the Swedes, this is a quotation, he said Hitler wouldn't be considered less criminal, but maybe just a bit more honest, because he feels that the same process is ongoing. So saying these kind of things, which should be basic free speech, are in France considered to be worthy of 2 months of jail and about 4,000 euros of fine. While in the same time, this happened not even a year ago. There was this rapper of African descent called Nick Conrad, who published a song with a very violent video clip, a song in which he repeatedly said, this was the the not the motto, but the thing that comes back a lot in the song. It was "Pendez les blancs," which means hang the white people. And after a trial, because this was considered to be incitation to ethnic hatred, incitation to violence, Nick Conrad was declared not guilty of anything.
Wow.
Well, it was a music rap video clip, very extremely violent, showing pure racial hatred. And for what he said, Renaud Camus was condemned for the exact same accusation, inciting to racial hatred and violence. So it is clear that today there is in some way a system that protects some kind of racism and promotes another one, the one that is targeted toward whites. And it showed during the trial of Renaud Camus, because the judge, the main judge, asked him, what are Europeans of origin, ethnic European? Because she said she didn't know. She didn't even know what were ethnic Europeans of origin. While, of course, she probably knows what Africans of origins are, ethnic Africans. So some facts, some things that are happening against white people, against Europeans, against the European civilization or the European nation states. These things, if you talk about the issue, about the threats ongoing onto them, you can be sentenced in jail. Which is why Renaud Camus, he basically said that today, hatred is simply describing what is happening to Europeans.
It's very much a European theme, and amongst any of the online activists that are trying to relay this information or trying to highlight process as we see it unfolding before our eyes. And I do believe, and I was just in conversation with a colleague of mine, and we were discussing that the flame of curiosity has been lit, the flame of nationalism has been invoked. From your perspective on the French side, we see now with the yellow vests, and I don't really want to move away from Renaud quite so quickly. Sorry. I do want to stay on the team before we diverge over to the yellow vests, but the complete 62 weeks of consecutive protests, the deaths and mutilations of the ordinary civilian trying to protest initially what was seen to be a carbon tax, but again, it seems to be all steering towards Macron's administration. He is aligned with the yellow vest as such. And as you say, the persecution that he received, I'm not saying persecution, but the fine and the supposed jail sentencing is a complete reversal, and is happening all over Europe as well, as that other people seem to have a get out of jail card, no matter what they say, if they are a supposed minority or anything other than, I'm hesitant to use or racially identify white, black, brown, pink, because that again is the intersectionality of the left. What they want to do is to pit us against each other. We are Irish, we bleed green, and we will always just see ourselves as Irish, and we take you for the content of your character, as the great man once said, and we try and see past racial differences as much as humanly possible to those in your immediate circle. But speaking on a broad perspective, on a large perspective, when these people are given what seems to be lighter sentencing, complete victimization card, where they're promoted, shielded again, time and time again, from any sort of justice being unfolded onto them in equality with everybody, the rule of law equally distributed among all. And je suis Tad Paul, based from it gives me the phonetic. It's Renaud Camus. Much appreciated, Tad Paul. But my point being is, there's a clear and blatant two-tier system in play, which seems to be in play. And if we don't wake up and address it more openly and honestly, it will really just exacerbate the situation till we, in fact, are, as we are continually reminded, are the minority. It is said that let us. What was one of the memes that was going around recently? Sit still and be quiet while we abolish you. You know what I mean? This kind of rhetoric is galling to me.
I fully agree. There is clearly a double standard going on. The same elites, the same globalists that would like to enforce multicultural and multiracial societies, but only in Europe, of course, only in the West. They keep telling us that races don't exist, that cultures are nothing special, that we should welcome the other, that Islam is a religion of peace, and etc. These same people, they keep on enforcing a double standard directed against native Europeans, and they pretend that they are all for inclusive societies in which we would all be equal. Then in the same time, they target a specific people, while often getting easy with another one, the one that is of the immigrant descended population. And it is interesting that you make a parallel between what happened to Renaud Camus and the Yellow Vest movement, because in the very beginning, the Yellow Vest movement, so this is more than 1 year ago already, because the protest has been ongoing since mid-November of 2018. So for more than 1 year now, the Yellow Vest movement have changed a lot. In the very beginning, it was the rural, low and middle class of native ethnic French people, because in the rural area, we basically don't have immigrants, not yet. So these people were protesting about a plan of Emmanuel Macron to tax even more, because it is already heavily taxed in France, to tax even more gas that is used in everyday life, of course, for your car. And in these rural areas, people, they don't have the metro, they don't have the electric scooters or whatever. They have to use their car. They have to use their car to bring their children to the school. They have to use their car to go to the doctor, to go to the bakery or whatever. It is essential to the everyday life. So when Macron wanted to enforce another tax on these working class and middle class people from the countryside of France, is specifically, in a way, it was not intended, of course, but he specifically targeted native Europeans that lived in the countryside. You know what I mean? So once again, it was the native French who would have to be heavily taxed to pay for what immigration costs, basically. And it was even so perfid that Macron used the environment excuse to try to enforce this tax. It is another project from the globalists. And once again, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. This is just that they want to greenwash their global economic plans, to globalize the ecological question. So Macron targeting native French in the countryside, this blew up, basically. The protests were very strong, heavy. And what is very interesting is that in the beginning, the French left knew that this was a protest from right-wing people, basically. Because the countryside in France heavily vote for the Rassemblement National of Marine Le Pen, for the what the media call the far right, even though it's just the right, and these protests were quite violent, especially in the beginning. But in the first 2 months, the left criticized heavily the Yellow Vest movement, and at some point, starting from mid-December, early January, they started taking over the movement, because they knew it could be a way of attacking Macron. And they didn't want these organic protests to be favorable to the Rassemblement National of Marine Le Pen. So now, and it has been going on for about a year now, all the Yellow Vest protests are driven by the left. The left managed to eat the movement alive. And now it has turned from a protest against new taxes in the name of the environment to a full leftist protest. And they have even abandoned the basic cause of the early movement, such as revolt against more taxes, such as direct democracy, etc. So you can see it's the same process going on. Whenever native French, whom are either the Yellow Vest or Renaud Camus, try to speak up about their situations, even though the concern may be very different, they are always shut down in a way or another. And this fits perfectly the system that is oppressing us.
We have similar aspirations to bring in a carbon tax here.
Yeah.
And already our farmers are out protesting essentially from the beef market, because we're now going to start importing inferior meat quality from Brazil. We've already started, I believe, that processes. So our much lauded and much vaunted beef sector, which has been praised globally for one of its immaculate standards of production of some of the finest quality organic meat in the world, is now in competition with its exorbitant regulations to produce this fine quality meat. Now has to compete with what I believe is a inferior quality meat from Brazil, because of the EU now seeking to keep its main Ponzi scheme, its main drive is cheap food, keep the people placated with cheap food. And as that becomes, as internal resources become hard, when external markets are able to give cheaper meats. They've snapped now with the Brexit situation, Britain leaving now at the end of the months later. They will have the chance to not only, I would say, no, they're not going to have complete control of their borders, because I see on another channel Boris Johnson is already making inroads to Africa and make passport arrangements between Africa and the UK somewhat easier, as he said. And I think that's a complete nonsense. It seems that we're hopping out of the frying pan and into the fire if he's going to open the doors to all of Africa. That aside, those carbon taxes have now have become an issue with our farmers, and they are taking to the protest, and they're not quite at the level of France where they will shut down the whole system. But it's certainly becoming more and more apparent that the exorbitant burden of taxes for their diesels, for the different quality fuels, is becoming quite a strain on the ordinary farm. That, with the banks trying to repossess farmland, quality farmlands, and trying to buy up the lands, you could say that you are in essence effectively paying to as more and more immigrants and migrants come through the migration process, that it's the indigenous population, that specifically the taxpayers, are being burdened as costs spiral out of control, because there is a never-ending supply of demand. The demand to get into these European states, into these European countries, to effectively get into the welfare system, and then all your troubles are taken care of, apparently, because you're allotted as a minority status, and you are elevated to be up and beyond, and seen to be, the shining light for what we should all do, or what we should all aspire to be. Where's the equality in that, when we are dumbing ourselves down and taking and becoming, as John Waters says over here, the hole in the donut? Why are we're not allowing this to happen to ourselves? More and more of us are becoming aware of it. Do you agree?
Yeah, of course. I fully agree. You said it much better than I could have. I see it working in the EU institution. There is a dogma for all these public workers, whom are, for the most part, heavily overpaid. They lost touch with the daily life of the basic people, who have to suffer, on one side, the massive immigration. The same globalists, the same EU elites are they are enforcing in our countries, so they have to suffer the immigration, and they also have to suffer the consequences of their infinite rush forward, a more globalized, a more open world, especially with all the free trade that is going on. So on one hand, they force our own farmers to match very high quality norms. Yeah, is that the correct word in English? Norms, yeah. And they put them in a competition with the rest of the world, which does not absolutely not respect the same ethic and the same quality norms than we are enforcing on our own farmers. In France, it has become so bad that one farmer kills himself every 2 days. Yeah, and they all day long they talk about ecology, about the environment, about protecting animals, about pesticides or whatever, and we are the most virtuous civilization in the world. We already respect this better than all the other areas of the world, but still it's not enough. And while it's not enough, they open our borders to a massive immigration that will just make the situation worse, and to trade with the rest of the world, while the rest of the world, and you can see it in China, you can see it in South America, they are destroying their ecosystem. So it is not fair, but it is also, and this is maybe a hope for us, it is also not sustainable. At some point, it will break up.
Yeah, it will collapse. we're rounding up on 35, Thierry. We're coming up to a nice junction in the conversation, and I just want to a big shout out to Don. Notification just came through, who made his way over to the Gran Torino website. Thank you very much for that donation, Don. I won't give your second name out there. Much appreciated. The yellow vest movement, just to round us off, please, Thierry. From your point on the ground, it's continuing every week. It's not really going to stop till Macron's administration or a new general election is called. Would you agree? Is Marie Le Pen looking stronger and stronger, or are we going to get more globalists in charge, do you think?
She is getting stronger, yes, but a big issue with the electoral system in France is that it is nearly impossible for her to win, because we don't have the coalition system like they do in Germany, for instance, or in Italy, in Austria, in Denmark, whatever. But we also don't have the United Kingdom system, which is the how do you call it? You know, when the one who arrives, who leads.
Past the post.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have this. We have a 2-round election system, which means, and it is especially true for the presidential election, of course, but also for all the local and the legislative elections, it is nearly impossible for Marine Le Pen or for the Rassemblement National candidates to win in a head-to-head duel. It would be possible with the English system. With the coalition systems, they would not be able to run things without us. But right now in France, the Rassemblement National is basically accounting for 22-23% of the voter share. We have only 7 members in the parliament out of 577. Imagine. So there is absolutely no way for us to wait. When I mean us, I mean the far right or the right-wing voters, of course, to wait on the national politics. And in my opinion, maybe the next presidential election of 2022 will show me wrong. But in my opinion, there is no way for Marine to win, because she would be herself as she was in 2017 against Macron. She would be just herself against the whole other system, who would band together in some kind of, in France we say the cordon sanitaire, which is the Republican arc, you know, all the Republican party banding together against the fascists, against the Nazis, etc. And this works every single time. So either we have...
Say that again, Thierry. Every single time,
yes.
Little in-house joke. Okay, Thierry, I know you're under pressure there, so I'm gonna let you go away, and I want to invite you back onto the show whenever you get a chance, just to keep us up to date.
Sure.
I know my live chat there is very intrigued, enthralled, not only to hear your accent. Everybody loves a good French accent, but also to get your valuable information from your perspective in the heart of the beast. And I'll hopefully sometime this year, maybe I will be able to get out into your neck of the woods and maybe do some reporting from over that side of the fence. I know you'll be well capable of looking after me when I come over there. So, live chat on this round, on this episode, with our conversation with my guest Thierry, who is obviously a pseudonym. I want to thank Thierry for coming on and for just giving us some general information on the background there. Anything to add, Thierry, that you might think of interest before we let you go?
No, I think we had a good discussion, and if you think about anything to add, you will just invite me next time, and I will answer with great pleasure to your questions, or maybe to your chat. I will come back with delight to your show.
Oh, for sure. Like I say, when you're not under so much pressure, the next time we can sit down and maybe take some questions from the live chat, and people can ask you questions directly and maybe interact with you a little bit more there. Thierry, I'm going to say au revoir, my friend. And we'll see you again soon. And I'll talk with you shortly whenever we can. Okay, my friend, take care.
Sure. See you. Good evening. Bye.
Au revoir. Au revoir. I know. I know, accents. What can you do? I'm making it up as I go along. The whole bloody thing, some people say. Okay, folks, as we always do, before we sign off, and I don't have anything handy. I have some copies of the National Intelligentsia. Will be leaving them off in various locations, primarily around Dublin and wherever I travel. When I go on my travels, they will be. Computer is forever's in the house. Thank you so very much, Dave, and some fantastic work from Garrod Murphy and Dave Cullen, who are out interviewing as many of the independent candidates and nationalist candidates that are contending in this year's general election. Hats off to you all, gentlemen. We're all shoulders behind the wheel as we try and do as much work as possible to try and give the people of Ireland an alternative platform or alternative voices that we may steer this country in a different direction. As you can see, some great insight there from Thierry on Renaud Camus' philosophy. I encourage you all to look into him there. As I said, I'll steer you towards Daughter of Albion's channel. She has such a sublime voice. I could listen to it forever. It's fantastic. Very sexy. But before I do, and as I always do, please, ladies and gentlemen, where you are, your age, and your current disposition, and I will try and get through them quickly before we say goodbye. Time to say goodbye. I know. I'll keep singing till you start speaking. La 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 la. It's time to say goodbye. Manuel Goodson puts in a request, and I'll say it to you as well, Dave. Manuel wants to paint your portrait. He's doing a Patriots portrait, and I do encourage you to get in contact with him. I'll try and forward you on his number. As they come in, Ronan Lynch is awfully and is middle-aged. That's all he's given us. Super Leeds in the house. 45 from Leeds. 37 from Connemara is tooth on the wall. Paz Dublin 4, 45, man. Spring Pedal says that's good. Zarowski is Dublin 35. TT is Dartmoor, and she says, I am innocent. And we have awfully and getting on a bit from Patricia Daly. So we're all getting on a bit. Clonmel 52 in the house from Fletch 13. As more and more of you pop up and let us know where you are. I want to thank you so very much. Tigers Bay, thank you very much. Cavajon is in London, is 51. Shadow is in Limerick, 52. Appreciate that. Cam Dub is 36, South Dublin. Great stuff. Linda is in Wales from Spring Petals. And as the notifications come rolling in, Tigers Bay is in Belfast. Here Ticking is in London, W5. Wisconsin in the house, ready to boogaloo. I don't know what that means. 49. Elish Manning is in Offaly. Who knows? Is 49, and he's Fingal, Dublin. Mark Murphy is Cork, the Great Republic of Cork. And Colette Brown, Colette Boland, also 21, Cork, 21 and a bit. Super Leeds, we're all old buggers. Stephen is 37 in Louth. And who else have we got? Noah is 950. Richard McKevick is 50 from Dublin, expelled to Donegal. What a beautiful place to be, though. Donegal. Donegal. For your eyes alone, you must go up and travel around Donegal and see the spectacular sights. Sharon is Rebecca Barrett. Great job for GT. In Nottingham, England, from Suzanne Gamble. Stephen S. is 37 in Louth. D. Nipper is in Meath and older than his teeth. Sheepdog is in Cork. A lot of Corkonians checking in. Great to see you all. Really appreciate the support. Thank you so very much. Chris Jones is 48 from Cheshire. And Enoch Bear reminds us to hit the Rogans up for exposure to the normies. 32 from USA, Illinois. And as we slow down, Chris Jones is 48 in Cheshire. Neil Copeland, Copey from Lisburn. Keep her lit, big lad. Guramila Mahagat. And I will practice on my more on my Irish, as I should do, as a bloody Irish nationalist, you bloody buffoon. Ladies and gentlemen, okay. Alice just reminds us, and I was speaking with Gemma earlier on, her Facebook page has now been taken down, so she is being censored on all platforms, but we will keep her presence and keep her flag flying. ECD is 50, Crawley, UK. And I'm being, Adrian Walsh reminds me that I skipped him, and I don't want to leave anyone else. Adrian, let me just track back a little bit, see if I can speak. There he is there, Adrian Walsh. And I don't think I left you. Look, I'll throw you up there, agent, so you can't give out to me at all. You've been up there on display. And Siobhan Murphy, again, Kulak 45. And the parting glass. Requests coming in for a few songs. Maybe the parting glass, or a few of the Furies. I have quite a penchant for the Furies. Much love from Carlo, from Elaine Sheeran. And Tigers Bay reminds us to vote for Niall McConnell in Donegal. Don't forget, various different platforms you will find your independents, your nationalist patriots in your local region. If you don't have them in your region or in your area, please go to the next area beside you and lend a hand, either leafleting or canvassing in another area, and try and get these voices forward. We keep going forward. And before I sign off, approximately an hour and a half's time, I will have the inevitable Dolores Cahill in studio, in present, for a live broadcast. So look out for 7:30 for a broadcast with myself and Dolores Cahill of the IFP, chairperson of the IFP, Irish Freedom Party. So for this episode, I want to thank you very much for joining me, and tune in for the next episode, which will happen very shortly. And if you'd brighten my Northern Star, please don't forget, press the like button, press the subscription button and the bell, and you too can join in on these live conversations, or if you're only viewing it on the rewind. Patriots, speak to you all soon. Have a blessed day, and see you again in about an hour and a half's time.